Om Jnanathimirandaasya Jnananjana-chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today we shall be continuing from Srimad Bhagavatam, first Canto, Chapter 2, text number 11 and 12. Text 11. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So this is one of the very important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada very often would quote this verse because this verse is giving the authentic information about the absolute truth. Tattva. Tattva means absolute truth. So, Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam. The jnana about the absolute truth is understood in three different aspects. And what are these three aspects? They are Brahma iti, Paramatma iti, Bhagavan iti shabdate. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. These are the three aspects of absolute truth. The absolute truth is actually both subject and object. And there is no qualitative difference there. So when we talk about the three aspects of God which are discussed in these words, whether Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, they are qualitatively one. When you say qualitatively one means they are all spiritual. So this is a very important thing to understand. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by one category of students, who are mainly dedicated to study the Upanishads. And same absolute truth is realized as Paramatma by the yogis, and Bhagavan aspect is realized by the devotees. So, but the understanding of Bhagavan aspect of the law is considered complete. Whereas the impersonal Brahman, which is nothing but the glowing effulgence of the Supreme Lord, and Paramatma aspect, which is again nothing but the partial expansion or representation of the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. It's partial, it's not full. So, Brahman and Paramatma both are incomplete understanding of the same absolute truth which is realized as Bhagavan. Now, when it comes to understanding God, who is also referred in the Upanishad language as supreme truth or absolute truth. So, this absolute truth is self-sufficient in the sense that he is not dependent on anyone for his happiness. Like in this world, no, I'm dependent. I'm dependent on so many factors for my happiness. I'm dependent on my, surroundings, my family. I'm dependent on my, the profession or business, what I'm doing. I'm dependent on social circles. In so many different ways I'm dependent. For my happiness, I am not self-sufficient. But absolute truth means one who is self-sufficient. He does not depend on anyone for his happiness. And he's cognizant. We have to go to school. To become learned or educated, one has to go to school. Especially parents, they have to go through so much struggle. The parents have to go through so much struggle to somehow push their children to send them to school. And in spite of pushing them so much in so many different ways, still, it's so difficult many times for children to pass the exam. So we are not cognizant. We have to go to education system to become educated. But God means, or the absolute truth means, one who's fully cognizant at all times. Not only he's fully cognizant, but when he desires, he can make anyone cognizant or educated. Simply by his desire. He doesn't have to push anyone to go to school or be learned in that way. This is what we read in the very first words of Bhagavatam. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavai. When the Supreme Lord, he wanted his son, Brahma, who was born from his own body. He wanted Brahma to become educated. So what did he do? He didn't send him to any school or college. Ene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Brahma Hridaya. Hridaya means from the mind. So simply the Lord imparted the knowledge to Brahma from within his heart. So Brahmaji, simply by meditating on the Supreme Lord within his heart, became learned by the mercy of the Lord. So Lord is supremely cognizant. And he is free from illusion of relativity. In this world, everyone is subjected to illusions. Of relativity means everything in this world is temporary. In that sense, it is actually illusory. So I'm thinking this is my home and I'll continue to live in this home forever. But this is illusion. How it's illusion? Because this home of mine is based on the theory of relativity. This home was built in 2017. So 2015, it was not there. And similarly, suppose this home is supposed to be there for, maybe 100 years, but I'm not going to be there 100 years in this home. So we get illusion, but the Supreme Lord is free from illusion. Nirasta Kuhakam. His abode is also free from illusion, and the Supreme Lord himself is also free from illusion. So that is the definition of the absolute truth or the Supreme Lord. So in the relative world, generally the knower, the person who's trying to understand some object, and the object which is to be understood, they are different. Like for example, if I want to understand about this pencil, okay, what is this pencil and how it is created, what are ingredients which are used in this pencil. So this pencil about which I want to study is different from me who's studying about it. But absolute truth means both the knower and known are one and the same thing. Now this is very important to understand, because many of the philosophers in this world get confused about this one simple truth. So I want to study about God. I'm absolute truth, because soul is also called absolute truth, and God is also absolute truth, in the sense that both are spiritual, both are Satchit Ananda, Nityo Nityanam, both are Nitya, Chetanas Chetananam, both are full of Chetana or consciousness. So in that way, both are considered absolute truth, one and the same category or same thing, you can say. Both are actually belonging to absolute truth category. So the knower and known, they actually are of the same quality. And there are three kinds of energies of the Supreme Lord. So we are the person who's trying to understand the absolute truth is called Jiva. Because Jiva is subjected to forgetfulness. So living entities, this material creation, these are the energies of the Supreme Lord. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Bhumi apanalo vayu kham mano buddhiri ahankar iti yamye bhinna prakriti rashta. This material creation we see is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Krishna says all this is nothing but my material energy. But apareyamitastvanyam prakritim viddhime para. So this is apara prakriti. But there is also para prakriti, living entity. Krishna says jiva bhuta mahabhav. That para prakriti is called jiva, or living entity. So these are the two categories. And then third is actually Krishna's spiritual energy, which is called Antaranga Shakti. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Kshetra Vyakhya Tatha Para Avidya Karma Sangyayam Tritya Shakti Uchyate. Vishnu Purana explains there are three energies of the Lord. Vishnu Shakti Para, there is one Para Prakriti. And Kshetragya, we as living entity, we are called Kshetragya. So there is Para Prakriti, there is living entities, and then there is Apara Prakriti, the material nature. These are three energies of the Supreme Lord. And each energy has innumerable subdivisions actually. But nevertheless, these are the three major categories of the energies of the Supreme Lord. And there's no difference between the energy and the energetic. So since we are discussing about the three aspects of the Supreme Absolute Truth, it's very important to understand there's no difference between energy and energetic. That is, we as living entity and the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, there is no difference. There's no in quality. In quantity, definitely there is difference. And the absolute realm and living entities are of the same superior energy. So where the abode of the Supreme Lord, where he lives, that abode is spiritual, and living entities, we are also spiritual. We belong to the superior energy. But this material world is categorized as inferior energy. So living beings in contact with inferior energy is illusion and starts identifying itself with the illusory energy. So I, the spirit soul, because I am in this material world, I am living in this material world, and therefore I identify myself with this material nature. But in the absolute truth, there is no such differences between the knower and the known. So the very meaning of absolute is like when sometimes we use this word absolute. If somebody is saying, "Are you sure?" Absolutely. So this word absolute means which is not subjected to change by the influence of time. In simple words, that is called absolute. So if I say, I am Indian or I'm American, that's not absolute. Because today I'm Indian, tomorrow I can become American. Today I'm American, I can become Indian tomorrow. I say I'm Hindu, that's not absolute, because I can become Muslim tomorrow. Similarly, I may say I am a man, but that's also not absolute. From a spiritual perspective, I may have this male body now, but tomorrow I can become an animal, or I can become female, or whatever form. So none of these are actually absolute. Absolute means something that does not change with time. That is called absolute. Krishna is God. This is absolute. It's not that Krishna is God now and tomorrow I can become God. A day after somebody else can become God. No. Krishna is God and he always remains God. So this is actually the meaning of absolute. So Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, they all belong to the absolute nature. They are considered the absolute truth. Go to text 12. Tat shraddhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyanti atmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti, sorry. So here the process, as realizing that absolute truth, which was described in the previous words, is being described. Tat shraddhana munayo. So shraddha means what do you call it? Having faith. That is called shraddha. So that faithful, tat shraddhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya. So a person who is seriously inquisitive and is faithful, jnana vairagya yuktaya, being equipped with knowledge and detachment. Jnana vairagya yuktaya means being equipped with that knowledge. So when they are equipped with knowledge and renunciation or detachment, what do they realize? Pashyanti atmani chatmani bhaktya shruta grihitaya. They can actually realize the absolute truth. Pashyanti means realizing or seeing face to face. Pashyanti atmani chatmana. The soul of the soul. That is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. Devotees can actually realize him by Shruta Grihitaya. Shruta means hearing and Grihitaya means accepting. So they accept it by hearing. This is actually a very crucial and important aspect of gaining the wisdom or knowledge of the absolute truth. It has to be realized through the hearing. Hearing is considered the most important aspect for realizing the absolute truth. Absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service of the Lord, Vasudeva, or the personality of God. So one can realize the absolute truth. Now, when we talk about absolute truth, mainly we are talking about three things. We're talking about the living entity, we're talking about God, we're talking about the relationship. So in simple words, realizing absolute truth means realizing or understanding one's true identity and realizing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and realizing our relationship with Him. This is the sum and substance of the realizing the absolute truth. In fact, all the scriptures, the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Itihasas, every literature, Vedic literature is mainly geared towards realizing this absolute truth. So, from the previous verse, we understand Brahman and Paramatma, they are actually partial realizations. Why? Because Brahman is only realizing the Sat feature or the feature of eternity of the Supreme. Paramatma is realizing Sat and Chit feature of the Supreme. But Bhagavan realization is the full realization of absolute truth. There are four different types of human beings. The human society can be divided into four, mainly actually two categories. The one category is called the uncivilized, and one is called civilized society. So entire human race you can divide into two categories: uncivilized and civilized. The civilized human society is categorized in the four different types, in the four different ways. So when you say uncivilized, means people who are simply living like animals. So uncivilized people means people who live like more or less like animals. They do not have any understanding about who I am, why I'm here, what is the goal of life. Their aim of life is simply to eat, to sleep, to mate, and to defend. So simply who live like animals is the people who are dedicated for eating, sleeping, sex, and defense. That's uncivilized society. But then the civilized society is where people have some understanding about who we really are and some higher purpose in life. So that civilized society is categorized further into four divisions: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and devotees. So karmis are the people who are, very much, attached to the karmis can again be further divided into two categories. Nishkam karmis and Sakam karmis. Sakam karmis are the people who are very materialistic. They want to enjoy everything of this world, and to that effect, they work very hard. They're called Sakam karmis. And then there's also called Nishkam karmi. Nishkam karmi means a person who works, who does sincerely work, but is not attached to the fruits of his activities, and doesn't put a lot of endeavor, for sense enjoyment or attaining some objectives or the things of this world for temporary happiness. They work hard and they dedicate the fruits of their karma for the welfare of others or for the Supreme. So they're called Nishkam karmis or Nishkam karma yogis. They become yogis actually. And then Jnana yogis are the people who actually study the scriptures like Upanishads and try to understand the absolute truth. They're called Jnanis. Then yogis. Yogis are the people who were Jnanis before, studied the scriptures elaborately, and now they retire to the forest simply to meditate on the object of their knowledge. So whatever they studied in the scriptures, they understood that there is someone, some great personality who is the object of their remembrance. So they meditate on that object. Therefore, they are called yogis, because they follow the process of yoga, Ashtanga yoga. And then there are devotees. Devotees are the people who are engaged in practical devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So among these categories of Nishkama Karma Yogis, Jnanis, Yogis and devotees are considered the topmost or the first class transcendentalist, because their knowledge and their understanding about the absolute truth is complete and perfect. And second class transcendentalists, next to the devotees, are partially realized, or the devotees who are called the second class actually is the yogis who meditate on Paramatma in the heart, the plenary portion of the Supreme Lord. And third class transcendentalists are those who chase after Brahman realization. So, especially the third class transcendentalists, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Klesho hi adhiktarastesha avyakta asakta chetasam. These third class transcendentalists are the transcendentalists who suffer a lot in their journey of realizing the absolute truth. Krishna says, Klesha. Klesha means lot of misery or anxiety, a pain, that is called Klesha. Klesho hi adhiktara. Most of their part, they attain only Klesha. So these are the three categories of transcendentalists. Now, among the three understandings of the absolute truth, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, Bhagavan, which is considered the complete understanding of absolute truth, is realized by devotional service. And that devotional service is the only means by which a living entity can have the full knowledge of the absolute truth. Now, Brahman and Paramatma realizations Now, these are considered imperfect realizations. As we discussed, Brahman realization is. So let's try to understand. The Brahman realization is actually, what is this Brahman? Brahman is nothing but the bodily effulgence of Bhagavan. The absolute truth is understood in three aspects. So one of the aspects is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a personality or a person. And this person has a form. Satchid Ananda Vigraha. Ishvara Paramakeshwara Satchid Ananda Vigraha. So he has a Vigraha, he has a form. And that form is effulgent. It emanates divine light. That divine light is called Brahman. So Brahman is nothing but the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna. And Paramatma realization is like understanding the localized aspect of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Prabhupada gives an example in this regard. Localized, how do we understand what is localized aspect? Now say for example, it is 6 o'clock in the evening here. Suppose it was, now it will be dark in the East Coast, of course. But suppose it was, 12 o'clock in the afternoon here. It will be 3 o'clock in East Coast. And probably, 9 o'clock in Hawaii. Early morning, 9 o'clock. So if you ask a person suppose from California is calling his friend in California. My dear sir, I'm seeing sun in the sky. Do you see sun in the sky? Yes, I can see the sun in the sky. I call some of my friends in East Coast. Suppose I call Krishna, and I ask him, Krishna, do you see the sun? Yes, Prabhuji, I see the sun here. So, sun is only one object. It's not that there are many suns. One sun is shining in East Coast, one sun is shining in West Coast. No. There's only one sun. But everyone, people in Hawaii, people in California, people in East Coast, in New York or in Virginia can see sun. One sun, but can be seen in different places by so many different people, although the object is still one. This is a material object. So similarly, the one Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, when he's seen by an accomplished yogi in the form of Paramatma in everyone's heart, that realization is called Paramatma realization. So Brahman realization is only understanding the absolute truth or supreme absolute truth is actually eternal. So that is Brahman realization. Paramatma realization is when one understands Sat and Chit feature of the absolute truth. The Supreme Lord is eternal and full of knowledge. So as Paramatma, because he's there in everyone's heart, so he knows exactly what's going on in everyone's mind. And Bhagavan means the complete personality of Godhead. So Brahman and Paramatma realizations are incomplete because they only make a person realize Sat and Chit feature of the absolute truth. Supreme absolute truth is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. And devotional service is, which is based on 4 grounds of knowledge and detachment, is the only perfect method by which one can realize the absolute truth. So to realize the absolute truth, there are different processes. Krishna also explained these in Bhagavad Gita. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So there are many processes, but Bhakti or devotional service is considered the most sublime and easy process for realizing the complete realization of absolute truth, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And devotional service, therefore, is not meant for less intelligent class of people. Some people think that, oh, bhakti is so easy and sublime, so it's meant for less intelligent class of people. It's not meant for highly intelligent people. So this is the glory of devotional service. Devotional service is the only means by which one can realize Bhagavan. And a person who realizes Bhagavan aspect also realizes Brahman and Paramatma. Now, based on the realization, there are also three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. First class devotee is the one who has a realization of, complete realization of absolute truth. Satchid Ananda Vigraha. That is first class. Second class devotee is one who has only Sat and Chit realization of absolute truth. And third class is one who has only understanding of or realization of Sat feature of the absolute truth. Of course, Prabhupada goes in explaining the different aspects of these are three transcendental, but here devotees are also categorized into three categories. So third class or materialist devotees are the devotees who are attached to material benefit than transcendental profit. So those who actually take to the process of God realization, but they are not really interested in God realization, but they are interested in material gain. And second class devotees are the people who are, who see the principle of devotional life, who can actually understand the absolute truth. They understand the devotees. They understand who are the ignorant people and who are the envious. This is actually explained in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. It says, Ishwareshu tadadineshu balisheshu dushashu prem maitri kripopeksha ya karoti samadhyama. So second class devotee is a person who sees four different personalities. Ishwareshu. First of all, he sees the Ishwara, the Supreme Lord. Ishwareshu, Adhineshu. Adhineshu means the devotees who are actually interested in Krishna consciousness. Balishu. Balishu means those, Bala means child generally, but here the meaning is innocent. So people who are innocent like children. And Dvishashtusa, those who are envious. So second class devotee is the one who deals with these four categories. Ishvara, devotees, ignorant, and envious. And how does he deal with them? Is also explained. Prema, Maitri, Kripopeksha. Prema. To the Ishvara, he does prema. So the person who's middle or the second class position of the devotee, he loves the Supreme Lord. Ishwareshu, prema. And for devotees, prema, maitri, he does friendship with them. And to ignorant, he shows kripa. He shows mercy to them. He teaches them about Krishna consciousness. He gives them knowledge. He gives them guidance. So he shows kripa or mercy to ignorant. And prema kripa upeksha. Upeksha means to avoid or to be indifferent. That's called upeksha. So to envious people, he tries to avoid them. This is the position of the madhyam or second class devotee. And first class devotee is considered Bhagavata or Mahabhagavata. So such a person, he can actually not only he sees Supreme Lord everywhere, but he can make others also Krishna conscious simply by being seen by them or coming in contact with them in any way. So here, therefore, it's explained that the third class devotee has to receive instructions of devotional service from authoritative sources, and he should accept the guidance from the second class devotees. And this category of third class devotees or Kanishta Adhikaris, which is described as Kanishta. Kanishta means a neophyte. So a neophyte or third class devotees, they should accept the instructions from the first class devotee and even second class devotee. Generally, a first class devotee means someone like Srila Prabhupada or the representative of Srila Prabhupada who has imbibed the spirit of Srila Prabhupada. Like even in Bhagavatam, we see Shukdev Goswami. Shukdev Goswami is one of the very exalted Vaishnavas, devotee, who came in the presence of Shukdev Goswami actually came in the assembly where Parikshit Maharaj was sitting and fasting. And it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, how did he come? He came dressed only in 4 directions. That means he was practically naked. And when he was walking on the street in general, people would sometimes throw stones or children would make fun of him and throw sticks or stones at him. But as soon as Shukdev Goswami entered into the assembly, everyone present in that assembly, in great reverence, showed respect to Shukdev Goswami. And when he was asked question by Parikshit Maharaj as to what is the ultimate goal of life, Shukdev Goswami non-stop elaborately explained this entire Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll be reading actually the forthcoming chapters. So Shukdev Goswami, for 7 days and 7 nights, continuously spoke the message of Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Okay. The transcendental subject matter is not to be received from a person who's not a Vaishnava. So ideally, a person should receive instructions in spiritual science from either first class or second class devotees. But one should not receive from professional man who has no devotion, who may be giving guidance simply for the sake of money. Prabhupada gives example, hearing the message of Bhagavatam or absolute truth from a person who is not a devotee is like taking the milk which is touched by a snake or a serpent and drinking that milk. Milk is very nutritious. Milk is very beneficial. But if the milk is touched by the lips of a snake, then that milk becomes poisonous. And one should not drink that milk. Similarly, Harikatha, or subject matter about understanding the Supreme Absolute Truth, is actually transcendental, full of transcendental potencies. But when a non-devotee speaks it, he gives his mundane interpretations or explanations which are not really true explanations of the scriptures. And therefore, a person becomes like learning the subject matter which is not correct. It's like taking milk which is touched by the serpent's mouth. Therefore, a sincere seeker of absolute truth must be prepared to hear the Vedic literatures like Upanishads, Vedanta, Srimad Bhagavatam from authorities, proper authorities or Goswamis like Shukdev Goswami, if they really want to get the true benefit and progress in their spiritual life. So therefore, unless devotional service is established on the principles of scriptures like Shruti, Smriti, Purana and Pancharatna, a person practicing devotional service creates only disturbance in the society. Shruti, Smriti, Purana adi Pancharat Bina Ekantikir Harir Bhakti Utpate Eva Kalpate. So a person who does bhakti without referring to scriptures. There was one Hindi poet, he made a kind of a doha. He said, Pothi pad pad jagmua maya na pandit koe, dhai akshar prem ka pade so pandit hoye. So he said, Pothi means scriptures. Pothi pad pad jagmua bhaya na pandit koe. In this world, by reading and reading scriptures, nobody really becomes learned. Dhai akshar prem ka pade so pandit hoye. One who simply reads 2.5 letters of prema. Prema has 2.5 letters in it. Pa and ra, they're called 1.5 letter. Pre. Ma is 1 letter. So prema means 2.5 letters. One who reads this just 2.5 letters, prema, he becomes a greatly learned person, which is actually more or less based on sentiments or some mere sentiments. Bhakti or devotion to the Supreme Lord is never based on just mere sentiments. It is actually guided by the scriptures like Shruti, Smriti, Purana adi. But somebody does bhakti. Oh, I love God. I love Krishna. I will simply, some people sometimes they say, I will simply distribute books. I will not do anything else. Or I'll simply, do kirtan. 24/7, I'll do just kirtan. Sometimes you come across such sentiment with people. Of course, they can't do 24 hours, but they say, oh, I just chant Hare Krishna on the kirtan. I don't like to do japa. So that kind of bhakti is more or less a show, to make a show of devotional service. And Rupa Goswami says that bhakti is called Ekantikir Bhakti. Ekantikir means isolated bhakti. I will do only what I like to do. So I don't like japa. Japa is too troublesome. But I will read Bhagavatam. And in Bhagavatam also, I don't like philosophy so much. I'll read only stories from Bhagavatam. So that kind of bhakti is utpata. Utpata means it creates commotion or disturbance in the society. Bhakti is not done like that. Bhakti is done by following the proper authorities of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra. These are scriptures. So unless devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra, it is only Utpata, it's only a disturbance in the society. And people who are actually, not devotees, who speak on Bhagavatam or on the spiritual subject matter simply to get some profit, adoration, or distinction, hearing such speeches by people doesn't really benefit anyone. So it is explained that if a person simply receives the subject matter or receives the knowledge of scriptures from the bona fide authorities, like a bona fide Vaishnavas, first and second class Vaishnavas, then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a person can get complete knowledge, complete and proper knowledge about Supreme Law. And to be situated in that knowledge and act accordingly is called Samadhi. Samadhi means Samyag Adhyate, means a person, he's fixed in this understanding. I am not this body. I am actually spirit soul, and that spirit soul is part of Krishna. That person is fixed in this understanding and acts as per this understanding. And this fixed understanding is called Samadhi. So this is the sum and substance of these two verses. That Supreme Absolute Truth is understood in three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And Bhagavan realization is actually complete realization, whereas Brahman and Paramatma are partial realizations of Absolute Truth. So with this, I think we'll stop here. If anyone has any questions, you may ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranams. Prabhuji, is there any way for the jnanis and yogis to come to Bhagavan realization?
Yes, the Gyanis and Yogis can come to Bhagavan realization when they come in contact with a Vaishnava. And some Vaishnava actually shows mercy on them by, giving them devotional service. So, understanding of Bhagavan or complete understanding of Absolute Truth is possible only by the mercy of Vaishnavas. I hope that answers your question, Mani.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.